Welcome to the 448th Imagine Greater Buffalo program and another virtual Imagine lecture hosted by the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks so much for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, we're going to start with our speakers shortly, but first a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted during our speaker's presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. This program is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and their YouTube channel. And we hope you share the link with your friends and networks. Now, this is the second Tuesday of the month, so our themes in this Imagine program are architecture and design. And I intentionally slotted in a sports program as we are celebrating, as our viewers I'm sure know, for the full year, April to this coming April, the Erie County 200th celebration. Our bicentennial. And as such, sports is an important part of that. And as we'll see, we have a sport, baseball, that goes back to just a few years after the founding. It goes all the way back to 1857. And our speaker today wrote the book about the seasons of Buffalo baseball, 1857 to 2020. Speaker is Jim Overfield. Jim was born and raised in Western New York. While he currently lives in Vermont, like many Buffalo expats, he has kept a deep emotional attachment to Buffalo, its people, and its sports teams. Jim's father, Joe Overfield, was well known for the many articles he wrote on the history of Buffalo baseball. In 1985, he published 100 Seasons of Buffalo Baseball, a goldmine of information about his beloved Bisons. In 2020, Jim edited and wrote updates for a new edition of the book, which, as I mentioned, is titled The Seasons of Buffalo Baseball, 1857 to 2020. So now let's hear from Jim Overfield. Jim, take it away.
Well, thank you, Dennis. It's very appropriate, as you mentioned, for sports to be a topic connected with the celebration of Erie County's 200 years of experience. And it's also appropriate that of the major sports that concern Erie County residents today, I think it's true baseball is probably in third place after the Bills and after the Sabres. But for most of Buffalo's history, baseball was king. And for most of Buffalo history, baseball was the only game of town. You mentioned 1857. That was the year in which the first mention of a Buffalo baseball team showed up in the local press. And we'll be talking about that team in just a few minutes. Pro football got started here about 1918. Pro hockey began playing in Buffalo around 1920. And in fact, although the teams were named Buffalo teams, the hockey team played just one season, the old Broadway Auditorium, and then played the rest of his games either in Fort Erie or Niagara Falls. The Fort Erie experience ended in 1936 when the big late season snowstorm fell on the arena and collapsed it. That was the end of that. Baseball, as you mentioned, first major amateur team was organized in 1857, but baseball may go back even later than that. Some people surmise that the following document suggests that it had an even early start. And this is a ordinance that was approved by the city council in 1832, which stated the city council shall have the authority to make laws regulating the rolling of hoops, flying of kites, playing at ball, all of which have a tendency to annoy persons passing in the street or to frighten teams of horses. So playing at ball, is that really baseball? Probably not. It was a children's game, probably with no set rules or rules that change from day to day to week, depending on who showed up. So the credit for being the first is this team. It was a team of amateur ball players, took the name the Niagaras.
James, just not to interrupt, but you know we don't see your slides, right?
Oh. Okay.
That's why I figured I would interject here because
Okay, that's good.
didn't want us to be missing it.
Okay. Your screen. How are we doing now?
Not yet. There we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
All right. Well, you missed the two pictures of the book.
Well, show it. Put them back, Jim, if you can.
Okay, yeah, this is the original book my dad wrote in 1985. The 100 Seasons of Buffalo Baseball. A lot of talk about bringing out new editions over the years. We finally got around to doing it. So yeah, just 2 years ago, we published this book, Seasons of Buffalo Baseball. Nice hardcover book with a lot of illustrations, bringing the story up to date. Yeah, back to the Niagaras. This is the first amateur team the city had. It was quite a powerful team. It kind of dominated the local baseball, other amateur baseball teams in the city. Actually toured the country to play out of city teams from Rochester and Syracuse. Took one tour all the way to Detroit to play games there. Niagaras were a kind of baseball powerhouse. His experience was interrupted by the Civil War beginning in 1861. When the war ended in 65, they tried to revive the club, but not without much success. Another key turning point in the history of baseball was 1877. And this was the year in which Buffalo's first professional team took the field. By then, professionalism had pretty much replaced amateurism as a dominant form of team organization. And Buffalo kind of lagged behind dozens of other cities which were fielding paid players by that point in time. And this is a picture not of the 1877 team, but rather of the 1878 team, which was the first team to actually play in an organized league. That league being the called itself the International Association. And as I said, the Bisons, as they were known already, finished first, nosing out teams from Syracuse and London. That's London, Ontario, not London, England. So we take 1877 as a starting point, taking it up to the present day. There have been 19,191 professional baseball games played in the city, of which the local team won 9,860 games and lost 9,309 games. So they had 22 ties. So they've had a winning record. And lots of games viewed by lots of fans. We don't have attendance statistics for the 19th century games. Official statistics attendance statistics begin to be kept by 1901, and then there's a period from 1916 to 1920 when, for some mysterious reasons, there aren't any official statistics. But if we count just those years in which, for which we have statistics, how many fans watch these games? About 38,200,016. And if we add in a conservative estimate of how many fans watched the games in the 19th century in that brief period after World War I, we had another 4 million fans. 42,200,000 fans watched Buffalo teams play baseball, which is really an astounding figure. Dennis was particularly interested in the architectural aspect of sports. And so we have several pictures of where the Buffalo teams played. And I mentioned that 1877, 1878 team, Buffalo's first professional team. This is where they played. It's a ballpark that was called Riverside Park. It was a very basic playing grounds. As you can see, it's fenced in, but with no particular architectural distinction. That's where Buffalo professional baseball began. In 1884, the playing grounds for the team shifted, you can see here, to a field that was built at Richmond Avenue and Summer Street. It was right in the middle of the downtown area. This is called was called Olympic Park. The name was changed to the Buffalo Baseball Park in 1907. But baseball was played here on these grounds at Richmond Avenue and Summer Street only till 1888, when Olympic Park moved to another part of the city, Woodlawn Avenue, Michigan Avenue, and I guess it would be West Ferry Street or East Ferry Street, I'm not quite sure. But when I say the ballpark moved, I mean it literally moved. This park, the original Olympic Park, was dismantled board by board, nail by nail, and transported to the new site. And their baseball was played in the Olympic Park, later named Buffalo Baseball Park, in 1923. When Olympic Park, I wanted to mention this briefly. This is Josiah Jewett. He was the son of Sherman Jewett, who at the time was one of the wealthiest and most prominent Buffalonians. He's a very wealthy man who was involved in the family's furnace business and banking ventures. He basically bankrolled the building of Olympic Park. He was also the person who sold off the team in 1885. And as I said, the Olympic Park was then moved to another part of the city in 1888. This is Offerman Stadium. It was the first steel and concrete stadium in which the Bisons played. This was built on the very same grounds as was Olympic Park 2. And here the team played 1923 down until 1960, when the area in which Offerman Stadium then stood was purchased by the city of Buffalo for the building of a school that was deemed necessary to serve that community. And for people of a certain age like myself, this is where we had our first experience watching the Bisons play. 1960, with Offerman Stadium having been demolished, the team moved to this stadium, variously known in its history as Civic Stadium, or Memorial Stadium, or Resch Stadium. But it was a Depression era stadium built mainly for track and field, for football, also stock car racing, which occurred here. It was an oddly shaped field for baseball. As you can see, it had a very short right field. A lot of home runs were hit there, and a ridiculously long left field. And for baseball, they had to build a special fence. And that was viewed as a positive step for the team. The team had had a very successful year attendance-wise in 1959, and there was talk of establishing a new baseball league, the Continental League, which was going to rival the American and National Leagues. Buffalo was going to be included, and it was thought that the team could move to War Memorial Stadium, and there'd be a lot more seats that they could fill for a major league franchise. Of course, this didn't happen. Sadly, baseball at War Memorial Stadium proved to be a failure in the short term. It was in a neighborhood which was racked by many problems and violence and crime rates and so forth. In the 1960s, people stayed away in groves. And so in 1970, crowds reached so small that the team abandoned its franchise. And for 10 years, there was no professional baseball in the city. Baseball came back in Buffalo in 1979, playing still in War Memorial Stadium. A lot of the same problems plagued the team up until 1983, when the Rich family, Bob Rich Jr., bought the team and created kind of a new era for Buffalo baseball. It was under the leadership of Bob Rich Jr. and Mayor Jimmy Griffin that the city was able to organize the building and construction of a beautiful new downtown ballpark, which was originally called Pilot Field, which is now Sailing Park, which is the park that the ball team plays in today. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Pilot Field shortly, but just want to take a few minutes to go over some of the highlights of Buffalo in terms of making contributions to baseball history. Show this plaque from the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown of one of the great stars of the early Buffalo professional teams, Jim Galvin. He's one of 21 former Bison players, executives, managers who have been elected to the Cooperstown Hall of Fame. 6% of all the members there wore the Buffalo uniform at some point. Here I'm showing a piece of sheet music, which is very interesting. We're all probably familiar with the famous Buffalo song, baseball song, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," "Take Me Out to the Crowd," and so forth. The first baseball themed song that was published, that was performed and published, was done so in Buffalo. It's called the Baseball Polka. You can see it was written by a man by the name of Blodgett, who was a member of the Buffalo Niagaras Club. And it was performed the first time at a banquet ceremony involving the Buffalo team, the Niagaras, and a team from Rochester, where they wined and dined after the game was over. The first baseball cartoonist that we're aware of was a Buffalonian a German immigrant by the name of Christopher Schmidt. He did a series of cartoons chronicling the fortunes and misfortunes of the 1877 club. This is one he did lamenting a loss on the part of the team to Pittsburgh. This is another cartoon he did for the last game of the season, where all the players are packing up and departing Buffalo for points unknown. Did 35 of these cartoons. Why he did them, I know they were possibly to bring publicity to the team. They were hung in a men's store downtown after they were completed, and there they were. Okay. As far as other firsts are concerned, here we have, where I get ahead of myself, look at this picture of the 1886 Buffalo team, and if you look down the first row, you'll see a face that's a little bit different from the face of the other players and manager. And that's Frank Grant, a African-American black who played for the Bisons from 1886 to 1888. He was a wonderful player, viewed by many as perhaps the most outstanding player of 19th century baseball, and he is one of the 21 Bisons in the Baseball Hall of Fame. This is a picture of Roger Baker, baseball announcer, who brought baseball to Buffalo radio in 1931, and we think it's the first radio station anywhere in the country that did play-by-play broadcasts of all the local teams' baseball games right up from the spring right through the fall. It was 1831. Another point in history was the lighting system that we see here at Offerman Stadium. Buffalo was the first baseball stadium in the Northeast to have lights so that ball games could be played at night. Save this picture for last. Three men that probably are recognizable to many of you. Mario Cuomo, Governor Mario Cuomo at the center, surrounded by Jimmy Griffin. On his left, our right, he was the mayor who was an ardent baseball fan, was dedicated much energy to bringing baseball back to Buffalo in 1979. And once he became mayor, was a major figure in the building of downtown Ballpark. This is Bob Rich on the left, Bob Rich Jr., another very wealthy Buffalonian who bought the franchise in 1983, and it looked like Buffalo would lose the franchise again. And the Bob Rich Jr. continues to be the owner of the team right down to the present day. Very successful owners, given the franchise stability that it pretty much was lacking for much of its history. And it was under Rich leadership that go back to Pilot Field, and where for a period of years between 1988 when the field opened in 1993, Buffalo drew more than 1 million fans every year. And then for the 2 or 3 years following it, almost drew as many. And if you look in the record book, there's only one other city, minor league city, anywhere in the country that was able to draw over 1 million fans during one season. And as I said, under Rich leadership, it did this for years, which is literally going to be a record that never will be broken. But it's a rich and wonderful history. The Bisons are part of the fabric of Buffalo life, and under rich leadership, anticipated continuing for many years in the future. As far as Buffalo Firsts, in terms of its baseball history, there's only one other city that's been called, has had the same nickname throughout its whole history, and that would be the Baltimore Orioles. They had two more seasons in which they Baltimore Orioles existed. They just knows out the Buffalo Bisons. So that's a quick overview, just for some of the highlights. And yeah, we have a few minutes left, so I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions any of you might have.
Jim, you've condensed many years of baseball history and into a very short period of time.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's a lot of stories. There are wonderful stories, interesting stories,
Well,
human interest stories. Encourage people if they want to pursue the subject of take a look at the book. It's
I was going to
all
say
the
that.
public libraries in the Erie County system.
That's a good point. They are in the library. We double checked that ahead of time, and folks can find a lot there. I'll also thank you for bringing back childhood memories of sitting in Offerman Stadium.
Oh yeah,
Watching Luke Easter hit line drives into the porches of the houses across the street.
oh yeah.
In that right field, short right field area like that. But Melissa, do we have any questions from our audience?
Yes, we have a few so far. The first question, was the Buffalo baseball team ever involved with a strike or a lockout? And kind of a two-part related question, taking into consideration the current MLB lockout, how do you think such a lockout could affect the Bison's upcoming season?
Well, to answer that question, it's easy. Because I asked that question myself, just someone knew about it a couple weeks ago. Now, if in fact, and it looks like we may have a lockout for the major leagues, minor leagues will be unaffected. So it's fully anticipated that Buffalo season will start at will start on schedule and play right through till September this year. But this is another thread in baseball history of the antagonism, I guess you could use that word, between the players and the owners. Buffalo's a major league team 3 different times, but in 1890 there was they had a team in the so-called Players League, which, as the name implied, was organized and run by the players, mainly in rebuke of the exploitation they perceived as experiencing from Indians. So, player management squabbles have been part of the game for a long, long time. And unfortunately, they continue to be so today. So, there will be a season in Buffalo. We can much count on that.
And another question, is it true that the Bisons gave away a donkey as a prize at a game?
No, there was no, they never gave away a donkey, but they did have over several seasons a promotion that was called Pony Day. Pony Day. And people have asked me, did they really give away a pony? And the answer is yes, they did. If I'd been a parent and had some young children, I would have definitely discouraged them from going to Pony Day for obvious reasons. But there's a very famous, very touching story actually in the book, written by the experience of he and his two brothers went to a game at War Memorial Stadium and actually won the pony. And they gave them the pony after the game was over, and they took it to their home. Somehow they hid it in their backyard from their parents. And their parents found that they had a pony in the backyard and said, "No, you have to take it back to the ballpark, and before you go, you have to go around and pick up all the horse manure that's in the backyard." And yeah, that was the end of that story. But it was yeah, no donkeys, but yes, pony. There were pony days.
And last question for now from the audience. What do you think, or do you have any comments on the Toronto Blue Jays playing in Buffalo over the last few years? Because obviously that's
been
not
great.
covered in the book, but
yeah, it's
part of
we
the
covered it
history.
in the book. I think it's been great. I think it was it's kind of a curiosity to have them playing Buffalo in 2020 because no one, could watch the games on television, but there were no fans in the stadium. What made last year's experience so meaningful was that fans are actually able to attend games and see the Red Sox play and the Yankees play and so forth, so on. And it was unfortunate that the Bisons had to play their quote unquote home games in Trenton, New Jersey. But that was necessitated because a lot of work had to be done to bring Sailing Field up to Major League standards. So a lot of work was done on upgrading the park, the playing, the stadium, which the Bisons will be playing this year. And so, yeah, it was positive in all kinds of ways. I think it came an interest in baseball. Fans still came out and watched the Bisons play after they returned to play their games in August. And it wasn't quite like the old days, but yeah, there's a solid group of individuals in the city who love baseball and follow the Bisons. And I think prospects for the team look good. I mean, they won pennant last year, and they should have another strong team this year. So yeah, it was I think a great experience for Buffalo. Brought a lot of attention.
And another question,
Mhm.
how was it that Buffalo was in the movie The Natural?
Well, it's an interesting story. War Memorial Stadium, as I'm sure most Buffalonians know, was also known as the Rock Pile. It's an old stadium, kind of decrepit, falling apart, and the producers and directors were planning a film based on Melmoot's novel, The Natural, that was set in 1939. So they needed an old, kind of worn out 1939-ish looking stadium to film their games. And so they heard about War Memorial Stadium, and the fellow who produced the film came up, looked at it, and this is it. This is perfect. This is just what we want. So 1983, Robert Redford and cast of incredibly great cast came to Buffalo, filmed all the baseball scenes in the War Memorial Stadium. Of course, they didn't call it Knights Stadium. Robert Redford played for the New York Knights, and there were a lot of scenes set around that were shot in Buffalo, famous spots that people would recognize if they saw them today. So it was a great boost. I mean, that was kind of a bad point for the city. A lot of the industries were gone. They were recovering from all kinds of problems in the late 70s. The morale was terrible. The elm trees were dying, or they were dead. And yeah, Robert Redford comes to town, loves the city, speaks very warmly of it. And yeah, I think it's natural, probably conservatively 20 times. And it never gets old. And I kind of compare the visit by the Maple Leafs or the Blue Jays, the Toronto team, the Buffalo used to play, but kind of a similarity between the visits of the Blue Jays and then filming in the natural game Buffalo Leafs, which is nice. They needed it back in 1983, and I think they deserve it. I mean, it's remarkably impressive things in the last 2 years, and hope we can keep it going. So,
Perfect marriage. It was a perfect fit, Jim, to have that 1939 type stadium, and really an archival moment for Buffalo supporters all over the country and beyond. When they see that movie, The Natural. We've gone well past our designated time, Jim, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. Mike Bellani, originally scheduled, ended up with conflicts that we couldn't resolve, and you were nice enough to step in and fill his, I called it pinch hitting for Mike Bellani today, was James Overfield.
Yeah.
Jim, you did a great job. Mike was hoping to join us. I'm not sure that he's connected here at all, but he was hoping to join a little later presentation.
Well, I was very happy to be part of the anniversary celebration and let people know a little bit about how sports, specifically baseball, is fit into that story.
Well, what we've done is basically over the last year had well over 50 of these Imagine programs. Each one's designed to archive at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library the story of Buffalo and from different angles. And this certainly is an important one, as I say, covering quarter a century after the founding of Erie County. That's when baseball was starting here. So as you trace back, so this is an important archive piece and a great presentation. And I hope all our viewers feel the same way. I'm sure they did. Good questions, folks. Thanks for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you, Jim. All right. Next week, we're going to have George Scott. He's a co-curator of the Colored Musicians Club. And it will be a good program. Let's hear about what's going on on Michigan Street, especially anchored by the Colored Musicians Club. So thanks for joining us. We'll wish you all a good day. Be well, and see you next week if possible. I'm Dennis Galucki. Take care.